Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to another session of Tracy Evans question time. Doesn't that sound official? But no, these sessions are when I've been asked a question and I like to answer the question or help as much as I can if I can. And this question is from, or this request rather than a question, this request is from Di Chuck Landers. And Di has done a few of my workshops with Hillbilly. I often take part in retreats for one of my stockists, Hillbilly, in Australia. I think it's Australia, or is it Canada? I get so confused. But Di asked me if I could create something with the, where is it? Dog rose and butterfly. Now I created, let me just get my, I actually showed Di a project with this here using the butterfly. So I thought I would create a project using this and maybe part of the butterfly. I don't know yet, but I also thought I would incorporate the vase stencil as well. I don't know where it's going because there's no prep. At the end of the day, it's a request. So not decided on colours, not decided on anything, which is a good start. So what I thought I'd do is I would work in my journal because that way then I can keep it. So it's just deciding which page I want to work on. As you can see, look, my pages have got quite a few marks on them. That doesn't bother me at all. That's where I either haven't put some copy of paper underneath or whatever. So I'm just looking at my pages. You'll have to excuse me if my voice sounds a little bit funny. I've got like an ulcer at the side of my tongue and it is so painful and it is aggravating me. That's all I'm going to say. It's really aggravating me. Oh dear, what am I like? Don't want blue. Can you tell? I don't actually know what colours I want. That one I want to say for the bird. So it looks like we're starting a new page because I've been good and... Yes, we're going to start a new page. As you can see, still lots left. This is in my Pink Pig journal and I can't recommend the journals enough. The actual card inside there is so thick, 300 GSM. Or is it £300? I can't remember, but it is super thick and it really takes the moisture really nicely. Now, if you want to protect the pages underneath, then you can use a piece of copy paper. Well, that's entirely up to you. It's deciding what colours I want to use, really. But the thing is, you see, when you're struggling for colours or you're thinking, I don't know what to do, can you see here? I've got a page here where I've used the auricular and it's lovely with this greys and plummy colours that I might actually go in and go to the page that's really marked. It's marked massively. It's got texture underneath from this page. Look, ouch, sorry. Texture underneath here. So I tell you what, let's challenge ourselves and use that page that is covered with all this ink. Now, you can gesso your page, and a lot of people recommend gessoing your page because it gives it a good layer and a good undercoat. But I'm not, in case I tend to use the oxides because I don't like sometimes how the oxides react with the gesso. So it's just thinking about those things. Right, so what am I going to do first? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the vase straight away. Let's place that down there. Let's add the vase straight away and let's decide where that's going. So let's grab some low-tack tape. It's hilarious because my husband's had my low-tack tape and put it in the wrong container. How inconsiderate. And you can see I'm not bothering that there's those marks on there. That's not bothering me too much. At the end of the day, it's my journal. It's where I have a really good play with products. And if you want to see any other videos, you can watch Amanda or Heidi or Lisa. Lisa does Facebook Lives in my group as well, every Monday at 7. Heidi does a lot of videos for different companies, and she does some for me as well. And Amanda does some inspiration as well. Let's just grab that there. So you can see I'm protecting my pages if I'm doing a wall or something, but I'm only adding a bit of ink. But anybody think I was decorating a wall, but never mind. So because I want it to coordinate with the previous page, I'm going to use that hickory smoke and grab a blending brush. I've got my blending brush here. And I'm going to use a little bit of hickory smoke. And I'm going to use my blending brushes. And all I'm going to do is just add a little bit of colour just to my vase, just to get the shape. So let's just, and if you bring your hands lower down, you get a much richer layer of colour. If you hold your hands further up, you'll get a lighter layer of colour. So, for instance, if you want the edge really dark, come down into that brush and add a really dark layer, like so. And then if you want it lighter everywhere else, just bring in that lighter layer, like so. So, as I said to you, you don't really need to cover as much up as I did, but there you go. So, and then what you do is, because you've got copy paper underneath, you then spend a week trying to get the low-tack tape off. So let's just remove all this, and as one go, I will probably use this again. The only reason I'm keeping the low-tack tape there is in case I use that again. You've obviously got some ink on your stencil which you could reuse. Let's keep that underneath there. And you can see, even from the blending, you can still have your dark and light just from a simple blend. But I want to make this vase look a little bit different, I think. Now this is going to be difficult because there's not enough room on my desk. Then there's never enough room on my desk. I don't know whether I can do it actually. Might have to do it in a card. Let's have a see. So there's never enough room on my desk. Let's bring it so that I can actually see. I need to do it this way. I'm making it really difficult for myself. There we go. So I want to add some marks to this vase as if it's a, rather than a see-through vase, as if it's got a pattern on there. So as if it's got a pattern on there. I'm just adding these score lines and pressing quite hard, and just I'm not pressing until I get to the vase. I can hardly see what I'm doing, but you know, what does it matter? I just want to make a pattern on my vase. So I'm just using my scoreboard, which Tracy can't speak. So I don't sort of press until I get to the vase. There we go. So now I've got a little pattern. So again, nothing too complicated, and it hardly shows on the previous page, so that's absolutely fine. Let's turn this round, and you can see I've just got them markings on there. Oh, I can't, do you know, everything is moving. But just so you can see, I've got those little marks on there, just so that it looks a little bit different. I'm going to take this now, and then I'm just going to add a little bit more depth, just with that hickory smoke. Just so that it's got a little bit more depth to it. Okay, just so that it's got a little bit more depth. And then just stay there. Which pen am I going to use? I want a grey one. So let's grab my Prismas. And sometimes there aren't always new ideas. It's just adapting the ideas that you might have picked up previously, you know, if there are no new ideas. So I've got this slate grey. So I've got slate grey, PC 936, and I think we need to sharpen that on this occasion. Let's give that a little bit of a sharpen so that we've got that nice point. And I can tell I've used this quite a bit because I've not sharpened it for a while. That's why it's taking a little bit longer to sharpen that. Right. So I've got my pencil now, which is PC 936. I'm just going to keep that in there. And then I'm going to highlight that line, those lines that I've made a little bit more. So what I'm doing is I'm making the vase look a little bit different. You know, we don't always have to keep everything the same. So I'm just changing the design a little bit, just so that looks a little bit different. And it just means that we've made the vase different from our previous vases. There we go. So we've got our lines on there just to make that a little bit different. Then we've already got the oxide inks on here. So let's grab some water. I'll just grab a little bit of water. And then because this card is so good, you can just add a touch of water to this and just bring out a little bit of the shading. Now, it's definitely moving the colour, but it's a little bit too pale for me. So what I like to do is, let's just bring this so that it's got a little bit more grounding, a little bit more shading. Look, my lines aren't even straight. So let's bring a little bit of shading. Let's just bring this down here. And then I'm just going to, first of all, I'll do this just to ground that a little bit. I tend to add a little bit of water and then worry about adding more later, because I just don't want to add too much. And if it isn't enough, I'll just grab a little bit more. And do you know what I haven't got? I haven't got any kitchen roll. And I really should have some kitchen roll, because that's your friend when you're adding water and working with your, you know, your pigments like that. I've got a little bit of wax debris on there. So let's just add a little bit more. So not enough water, but I always say less is more. There we go. These little bits here, that's just bits of wax from the wax pencil, just so I've got my grounding. Obviously I'll add a little bit more light, and I say that, you know, and then when I do this kind of thing, I just keep playing a little bit more and then a little bit more. Honestly, I'm terrible. So let's grab some kitchen roll. And let's just dab that. And it's brilliant because it doesn't go through to the next page, because that page is so concentrated. That page is so thick. It's because I'm thinking about colour and GSM as well, but the page is so thick. It's brilliant. Just going to add, what the heck is that? I don't know what I've got on my brush, but it's not helping much. That's better. Don't forget, we've got to add to the background yet. So initially, it looks a bit stark when you first do it, because we haven't added any detail to the background yet. So we've not done anything complicated at all. Nothing complicated there. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take a little acrylic block, a piece of acetate, whatever you wish to use. And then I'm going to add my hickory smoke, like so. I'm going to add this to my background. Just add little bits to my background. Instantly you feel better because you've broken the background. It's not quite so daunting. Even when I flick it like that, it's not quite so daunting. So what I want to do is I want to use a little bit of the pinky colour, pinky plummy colour, to go with my other. So let me just... Why didn't I pull the colours out first? Because I didn't prep. So we have a little bit of picked raspberry. So I didn't prep. Let's just add the picked raspberry on here. Now I've got water on here as well. Let's have some water on there. And we'll add some of this picked raspberry to my background as well. You can pick it up, spread it round. You don't have to worry about it being in one place. Spread it, press it down, spread it around. Nice and easy, nothing complicated. There's nothing complicated in there at all. You can just spritz that a little bit more with your background. I can't tip my page up because to show you the other side that it's not bleeding through or anything, because obviously it tips my colour. There we go. So you can take a little bit of the moisture off if you wish, just whilst we build the layers. Let me show you the other side now. There's nothing on the other side that's pink, so that's perfect. So that works quite nicely. So let's grab our heat tool, and we want to dry that. The main reason for drying it is that you're going to have a little bit of an issue if you try to stamp on a soaking wet surface. So just give this a dry. Just take your time. And it's great because the vase looks a little bit different now. Don't know why I'm trying to dry the other side for. It's already got things on there. Now the other side of my project, let me show you. The other side of my page, I've got these lumps and bumps. So I need to be aware of that, of those lumps and bumps. So what I need is I need a book just to make my surface nice and sturdy. Now, what I want to do, so let's just, I'm going to grab Morning Mist. I love the Morning Mist colour, but let's take out our stamp from the dog rose. Now, I just want to use the floral. So if you want it just for the floral and maybe the buds, let's grab our acrylic block. So I'll grab our acrylic block, and what I'm going to do is mask off areas that I don't necessarily want. So let's go there. So just because I've got the dog rose and I've got all these leaves, doesn't mean I can't simplify it a little bit. So let's just, yes, I know I'm going overboard again with the low tack tape. And why didn't I use the low tack tape that I had before? Never mind. So we've got the Morning Mist, and I'm just going to tap. Lots of tapping with that ink. Don't scrimp on your ink. Look how many times I tap that. Not once, not twice, several times, just to make sure there's a good layer of ink. I can then remove my low tack tape, which doesn't get wasted. It gets used again. And this is one of the reasons you couldn't use archival ink, because to dry too quickly, and you don't want that. So which one have I got? So let's have that. Look, I'm even turning it so that it's going the way I want it to go. Now, I've been very careless there. I'll show you. Can you see? There's glass here. I've raised my page a little bit with the book, which might help, but you can see that my acrylic block is touching that. So we'll see if I've been lucky and got the stamping. But I should have bought the stamp, you know, a little bit further up, and then the acrylic block wouldn't have touched that. But let's have a look. Again, even though I've dried that page, there's lots of moisture in there. So let's just be mindful of that. Can you see? I've still got the image, but I have missed some of my floral off there. So I've missed... how many floral? Oh, there you go. And let's just... There you go. Come down there a little bit. There you go. Now, obviously you won't do that, because what you'll do... Let me bring this in. take that off a minute. So yours will stamp perfectly because you'll make sure your acrylic block doesn't touch your rings here. So you will make sure yours is fine. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use my grey pencil that I put these lines in, which was PC936. And I'm just going to bring in the stems. Now what you've got to remember is this is a vase now that isn't see-through, or in my head it's not see-through. Let's add a little bit of more of this colour. So I'm just bringing in a little bit of this colour. I'm probably bringing a bit more as well. But you've got these here, so I'll just bring this in a little bit darker. Those stems, don't worry about them. It's a curvy line. Wow, nothing rocket science wise. I've not even done mine properly. Let me bring down so you can actually see what I'm doing. And you can see I've got that dog rose there. And yours will work beautifully because you won't do what I did and try and put your acrylic block on these here. But it's okay, I've drawn it in anyway. That's fine. So what I'm going to do then is give that some colour. So let's see what colours we've got. So I want, I should know these colours off by heart by now. I want Process Red, which when you look at it, it's more like a pinky plummy colour, but they call it Process Red. And what is this one called? Crimson Lake. And then maybe something a little bit darker. Tuscan Red. Do you think I use these colours? Look how small my pencils are. I love these colours. So what we can do is I'm going to use the Tuscan Red PC937. Now it doesn't matter if you haven't got these colours. Use your Distress Oxides to colour with. That's absolutely fine if you use that. I'm just going to go around there just so I can see that and just see that circle, so I keep that white. So you can go around with your oxides in colour, but again I go dark to light. You might go light to dark, whichever floats your boat. You don't have to do everything or colour everything the same way as somebody else. You know, if you're happy colouring light to dark and you're happy colouring with a different medium, you know, you go with it, whatever works for you. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this plummy colour sort of in the centre. Next colour, which is Crimson Lake PC925. I'm going to come in with that 925. But this shows you how you don't have to keep your stamp the way it is. You can just use part of it. And this is why I'm always raving that stamps are so versatile if you've got the right image, and they work beautifully. Let's just bring in a little bit more of that grey detail there. So then I'm going to use my lightest colour, which is Process Red PC994. And just come in and bring some of that pinky colour in. And you can see that it's very roughly coloured. There's nothing perfect about that at all. It's just roughly coloured. It's got no dimension, no depth, no layers, and it's not smooth. So we're just building those layers up. But doesn't that look different than it does here, the way I've drawn it. It looks totally different there, just with the one stem, than it does there. And also the angle I've done it as well. So you can always change your stamps. So don't forget, this isn't like a glass vase this time. So on some of my pages, like this one, it's like it's a glass vase and you can see through it with the stems. That video is on YouTube. But on this glass vase, which we now can't find, it's not a glass vase. It's like a decorative vase that you can't see through. Okay. So let's then go back to our Tuscan Red 937. So let's come in and let's just get that a little bit darker now. So as you get that a little bit darker, what you're doing is you're sort of layering down more pigment, and then it smooths out the area because it fills in the open areas of the card that is white. So it sort of smooths that out, fills it in, and therefore it becomes smoother because you're filling that area in. And as you add those layers gently, it starts to fill in. So this is Crimson Lake. But what I don't do is I don't come in too hard with any of the colours. Using that circular motion, I just don't press too hard, just so that it allows me, because I don't press too hard, it allows me to lay down wrong colour, lay down more of that pigment. We then want the Process Red PC994, which is my palest colour. And each time I add the colour, so this third colour is going into the second colour, and the second colour goes into the first colour. So the last colour you use goes into the previous colour and blends into that. And it blends into that nice and slowly. We don't blend into that too quickly. I'm just going to make sure you can see the petals and the movement of the petals. There we go. So just so I don't lose where my little white area is, I'm just going to add a little bit of white here. Now what I'm doing here is I'm trying to add a little bit of white on a piece of card that's got this waxy layer on there. So I just need to be mindful of that. I'm just trying to make sure that I account, I don't think that's the right one, you know, that I account for that white space and I don't cover it up. Obviously I can use my bleed proof as well, but I'm just putting that white dot in so that I don't not account for the white area. So then I'm going to use the dark colour again. Just add that dark colour in. And I'm just very lightly adding that colour. It's up to you how far you come down with that dark colour. Then I'll come to my second colour, which is Crimson Lake 925, which I can never remember unless I look at them over and over again. So I can see before my eyes, just as I lay that pigment down, I'm filling in all the little white open areas on the card, and I can see that that starts to smooth out. And you can add touches of white should you wish. Just colour that. I do lose myself when I'm colouring. I do every time. Come a bit further down with that one. And then I'm just going to use my white pencil just to just to blend the edge of the pinky colour, just so that it doesn't come to an abrupt end with sharp lines. The white just smooths that out a little bit. There we go. I just want to come in with the process red, and I just want to add a little bit of that process red just to the bud. Then I'm going to use the grey just to bring in a little bit more. So it's up to you how much of the colour you sort of add to your bud. It's entirely up to you. Definitely can't work out which one's got the most in. So then you can come in and just add your touches of white just so that you've got those in there. And really, I do sort of like to let these areas rest a little bit before I normally come in to do the white, because it's so much easier if you just give that time to just add those white touches. And if you don't like adding the white touches, you can just add the dots, and that works out really nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more depth to the vase. Let's do that now. So I just want something a little bit darker. Let's try that one, warm grey. So I'm going to try warm grey. Hang on, 70% warm grey. Let me get the percentages right. 1056. So I'm coming in. Now, I've shown you how you can just add depth with your ink pads. But what I'm showing you now is if you want to give it a little bit more oomph. It's the only way I can describe it. Sorry, it's just me all over, that is. Just add a little bit of pencil work. So then I'm going to come in with the slate grey, 936, and just blend that. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to get away with blending with just two colours, really. We shall see how I get on, rather than the three colours. There we go. Just coming a little bit darker there. And what I'm trying to do is not be too sort of regimented. Let's just come in. And I can't do it because my head won't let me do it. It just won't. I need a third colour. But I'm not trying to get rid of this detail here. You see, when you've got habits of how you do things, it's very difficult to change those habits, I feel. And that's why we should all work the way we work and what we feel comfortable with. This is 30% warm grey. Let's just come in. Oh, it's much better with the third colour. I can't help myself. And I'm doing this lighter than I normally would. Can you hear that? Because I've got those ridges on there, which I just love. I just love those ridges. So I'm just going to come back to the second colour, because I don't really want to make that darker colour any darker. It's nothing like being a fuss pot, is there? And just giving that a little bit more depth. So which colour are you? I like this 30% warm grey. It's a lovely colour, really nice. I'm just going to come in with a little bit more of a layer of that. But I'm not colouring like I normally do. It's sort of a little bit more looser, a little bit more roughy, if you want to, for a better word. I'm then going to come in with my white pencil, and what I'm going to do is just blend out so that I keep some of that oxide on there as the lightest colour, and just come in with my white pencil and soften that all, just so the edges are softened a little bit. So I love going over them ridges. Can you hear them? Small things amuse small minds, Tracy. But now I want to give it a little bit more detail. So I'm going to use the text that we've got in our dog rose. I hope you're liking the step-by-steps die. Die's used to my way of working, so I hope this works for you. You can obviously change the colours to whatever you want. I've got an arrow that shows me it's the right way, but honestly I'm not convinced half the time. So I'm going to take the text from the dog rose stamp, and it talks about the garden. So it's perfect. I'm not going to sort of stamp anything that doesn't make sense. I think I will just check this on here. Yes, it was correct. So I'm using my fingers as a stamp, but I'm going to add a little bit of text. Now what I'm doing is I'm just pressing very gently, just to give a little bit of text. So I can stick that to my hand, use that as my acrylic block just to ink that, and just add a little bit more of this text. And you can see that I can break the text up just to give a little bit more texture. I'm going to add some outside the area of the vase. And I don't have to worry too much about whatever I add on the top, because this is a permanent ink. I'm using the Morning Mist, one of my favourite colours to use in my stamping, because if I don't want black, the Morning Mist is just wonderful. So I'm just carrying that stamping, and I'm even using 3rd, 4th, 5th generation. Let's just place that back. So what I'm using, die, is this stamp here, the text stamp. And at this time, I'm also giving this time to rest a little bit as well. So, have I got a little bit of a re-inking? Let me have a look. There you go. Now I've got, look at the mess of this. Let me show you. Look, it's already on my finger. Now these, my re-inkers, I don't tend to use to re-ink my ink pads. I use them for techniques. Now you don't have to have the re-inker. You can have your ink pad, but the re-inkers are far more concentrated. So I'm going to add some water to my page, and I know you might say, Tracy, that's a bit of water, that is, but look at that. It's because my re-inkers were used in workshops, so they got in a little bit of a mess, but that doesn't mean I bin them. So So these are oxide reinkers, and I think I'm going to start getting some for the shop just so that we can do some techniques. So now that's like a water acrylic, isn't it? So I'm then going to pick up my brush, and we're going to pick up a bit of this colour, and then we're going to add a little bit of this colour just around. Can you see how concentrated that is? But you can see that's too regimented. But if I go like this, it now moves that. So just take a little bit of our colour. Look at how much pigment you get from this reinker. And I'm not being precise, I'm just adding a little bit of that colour, just so that some of the colour here is echoed in the background, but that's too regimented. So you just come in with a bit more water so that it moves. And because you've got that water in there, it will start to move a bit more. And you can just pick up water if you wish. I like to spritz it because it moves a little bit more natural for me. It means that I've not got dots. Like if I leave it like that, it just looks like a dot of ink. But if I just use a little bit of water, it looks more natural. But look how little of the pigment I use. Just none. So just a great little bit of pigment there. And look at that. I've got all this pigment on there. So let's pick up, I was going to say a spare piece of card, not that I don't know whether I've got a spare piece of card. So you can see, let's move this to one side. I've got all this pigment on here. Now this is just a reinker. I pick up some spare piece of card and I can then just add this reinker just to my cardstock. This is just pink frog. And then I can just leave that on there, and it can be the start of another project. So if I just move that on one side, I've never got one side available, but if we move that on one side. So we'll just give this a dry now because we've got all this wet surface. And what I love about this journal is it can really take the moisture. And you can see if I put the copy paper underneath, that means that it just sort of protects the underneath page a little bit, because you can see it's grabbed the moisture there. You can, by all means, just dab some of your page if you don't want some of your page. But give that a good dry. It's not going to affect your wax because that's wax based. That won't react like the oxides do. But sometimes I do like the reinkers just for the bit of a stronger colour. But now you really need to give that a dry, and when I've dried it, I'm going to lift it up just so that you can see it's not gone through to my previous page. So I'll just give this a dry. And I've absolutely soaked this page. And you can see I've soaked it because all my copy paper is crumpled. And I've got another piece of copy paper whilst we dry this. Not that I can pick it up. It's because I'm trying to do it with one hand. So let's give that a dry. But always sort of dry your page, but I've not got that on the previous page. It's perfect. And as I close the book, that will stop all the crumpling. Okay. So you can also add a few sort of white touches to your vase if you wish. It's entirely up to you whether you add the white touches or not. It's entirely up to you. But obviously I want to add a little bit more detail. So if I want, I can also, where are we? Number 3. See, I can mix and match the stamps. And because I've used the fern on the previous page, if I bring this in again, on this page, I've used the fern with my auricular. So if I use a bit of the fern on this page, it looks like it's all planned. So I take my fern stamp, which is TE3, and I've cut my ferns so they're all separate. You don't have to do that, but I have. That's me. Acrylic block, Tracy. Now, I always have to remember that my surface is not sturdy. Let's move that out of the way because it's soaking wet, and what we do is we chuck that on the floor. Right, because I'm such a professional. So what I'm thinking then is, so I then go to my masks, and what you do is you hope you've got a mask already drawn out, and if you haven't, you have to make one. Look, I've even got little pumpkin masks. So let's see if I've got a vase mask. Probably got everything but the kitchen sink in here. Hearts. But I do have a lot of masks. That's because I create quite a lot. But if I'm looking for a mask, you can bet £1,000,000 I won't have the one I want. I've got the chickens. I've even got the dog rose there. Pumpkin. And what happens is it makes interesting viewing for you as I'm looking for, I might use that actually, as I'm looking for pieces. It makes it really interesting for you. There, look at that, look, see, if you're patient, you get there. And it proves that I don't bin my masks, even if they are a bit crumpled. Let's bring them little pumpkins in. And then I've got my mask, look, and it's still got the low-tack tape on. I told you I don't bin it. And I've got my mask on there. And I tell you what, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it'll do the trick. So then I'm going to, let's make sure I've got that join of that book. So many things to think about. I'm taking the largest fern from TE3, and I separated them all. And really, don't do what I'm doing here. I'm inking this stamp over my work. Dangerous. Because if you're a drip like me, you'll drop it on your work, because that's what I do. So let's just add this so it's around about, do I want it that way? Honestly, do I want it that way or do I want it this way? Let's have it that way. So I've got that book underneath, so that gives me that solid surface to work on. And I'm just going to give that a little bit of time just to absorb onto that surface. I don't need to press really hard. I can just use my one finger just to stamp those. Now remember, these are not acrylic stamps, these are photopolymer stamps. So you can do heated techniques with these, and they are quality stamps. So let's see what we've got. There we go. I've got my bit of fern there. Love it, love it, love it. Now, and I often look through the camera because it just looks quite nice then. And then what I'm going to do is, do I just want, no, I like it like that. Stop faffing too much, Tracy. So then, let's take a little bit of this little fern. What does that sound like? So on TE3, there's 3 sized ferns. I like that as well because there's 3 sized ferns. Right, I don't want to lose my little mask because we saw how handy that came. So let's put that back in there. I'm going to use that grey again. And then I'm going to use another piece of copy paper. Let's just put that at the top of the vase there. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of the fern there. Okay, I've got the top of the vase there. And Then let's ink this up again with our morning mist. Let's make this one a little bit shorter because it's more pleasing to my eye. It's like that fern a little bit. Oh, yes. So, yes, that's lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I love how you can genuinely mix new with old. I love it. But then you'll know by now that I love stamping anyway, so that's what I love doing. So I'm going to add my little touches of white to the fern. And you can see I've added those little lines in there for you. You can just about see. Let's just sort of... And then we've got these ferns here, so let's just add little touches of white to the ferns. Don't have to be too precise. Oh, I love that. Absolutely love it. So then we'll bring in the little book again. And of course, I want to add what we're going to add, Tracy. Shall we add... Can't help it. Let's add a little chicken from TE48 because I'm slightly obsessed with them at the moment. So let's take our little chicken, make sure my book is there. Now I want this in black. So I'm going to take my Nocturne ink. Just give that a little bit of tapping. And then I'm going to add my little chicken. Just there. And it shows that you can still use your journal even if you've got lumps and bumps on the previous page because you just use a book. Then we'll come in and we'll just add, this is where everything gets buried, which is exactly what I'm doing. Let's make sure that our chicken is definitely grounded. Oh, not with pink ink. That proves how pigmented those re-inkers are. Look, it's still pink. And it's still pink. But this is why sometimes I use re-inkers, because they're so concentrated. So I'm just going to come in. So I take the water and then I wipe it away. Just add a bit of water there. There you go. I don't think I did my little chicken. There we go. We want him grounded as well. And then I'm just going to sort of little touches of white just here and there, just to lighten that up a little bit, just so you can see. Just love. Let me just add a little bit more. Actually, before I start doing that, let's just dry that a little bit, getting all carried away. The minute you dry that ink tense pencil, it's permanent, just so that you know that. Now I'm going to come here. I'm going to add a little bit of shading down those stems, just to give me a little bit more depth. So just a little bit more shading down the stems. But I've always got my kitchen roll with me because it's brilliant. Because if I've got a little bit too much water, I can just wipe that off. So just bringing in a little bit more depth just to the florals. I'm running out of water there, so just pick that up. Just to give a little bit more shading just to that. And I think we'll just have a little bit more just under there. Just to give it a little bit more shading. And I'm going to be really fussy and just add some there as well. That's it. So you can just dab your image if you need to. And then what I tend to like to do is I do like to sort of add a few more white touches. But now I've added that, I want to come back to my text from the dog rose and butterfly. Make sure I don't use black. Use the grey morning mist again. And I'm just going to add, now I've got my ferns in, I'm going to add a little bit more text just to my page as well. And I'm pressing very lightly so that the text is slightly broken and not too regimented. Just slightly broken. And you can use your first and second generation stamping. Again, it's up to you how much of that text you place on there. Right. Because I haven't got them in line now, I need my packaging so I can read everything. You'd think I'd know everything off by heart. No. So actually I might put that in black now. So let's grab my book again, Spend My Life. There we go. And let's take that dog rose text. And now I'm going to stamp this in black. Like so. Move these out of the way because you can't see what I'm doing. So I'm inking the dog rose text in black ink. And then I'm going to place this. There we go. Place this here. And I'll explain why I've placed it there. I've placed it there so it sort of balances with the chicken that you can't see at the moment. I'll lift that up. So you've got the dog rose there. Let's move that up a bit. The text. But it's there sort of balancing the chicken a little bit, which works rather nicely. I mean, you can keep adding to it. Honestly, you can go on forever. So, for instance, and I'm not going to do this, but if you wanted to, you could mask off your vase and place the bird on as well, so that the bird was in the background. Oh, no. Why do I do these things? Because I think, yeah, that looks quite nice. Oh, you see, obviously, do I do this? Why do I do this? I'm going to get it now. You can keep it like that if you want, but don't forget, journaling is for experimenting, and that is exactly what I'm doing. So I'm sorry, Di, this is your project, but I'm adding a bit more to mine, but you don't have to if you don't wish. So I've got my vase masked off. I'm going to take my little bird. It's not exactly little, but you know what I mean. And then I'm going to take some of this low-tack tape that I've saved, because I'm a total pain. I'm going to mask that off. Now, it needs to be low tack because those pages are still wet. So please don't go in with anything that isn't low tack, because you'll just tear your pages. There we go. Like so. So I've got that masked off, and we do not want to break his tail up. There we go. And then I'm going to use the Distress Oxide Hickory Smoke, and to really grab some of that ink, like so. And then I'm going to blend. I have masked that off, haven't I? Yeah. I'm going to blend this ink now all around my bird, but I'm not coming in too firmly initially. So I'm going to add layers of that ink. But can you see where my finger is on my blending brush? So just taking time to blend that. Now, the dog rose text is not going to move. It won't move because it's permanent ink. But what I don't want to do is cover up all the pink. I want it to just be present. And if I haven't got enough ink on there, well, that's not a problem either, because I can just place the stencil back on again and add that. So let's take this off. Now, this is where you need it to be low tack tape, because if it isn't low tack tape, it's going to tear that page. Ta-da! I love it. There we go. Oh, this is why I love it when stamps and stencils just go together and they work. It's just wonderful. Look, look, look. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I've mixed old with new, and it makes me very happy. So let's just add a little bit of sort of blending. I do not know what I keep doing with my brush, excuse me, because, you know, my little brain isn't working. And then I can just wet that a little bit. Where's my kitchen roll? Just make it a little bit softer. There we go. And I love how the dog rose sort of goes through the bird as well. Makes me very happy, that does. So let's have with a H some splatters. Now, if you don't like splatters, don't use splatters. Make sure you don't aim for your dog rose text. There we go. And then that is my page for Die Chuck Landers. The only thing I would say, just to finish it off, is I would go in with my Posca pen again, and I would just go in with these touches of white again, because now the page is rested, it just becomes more prominent. So it's just worth doing those again. I don't like to add too much so that it's completely false. I just want to add a little bit. So if I lift that page up, you can see then just how it's come together, how we've made the vase look different, how we've mixed and matched previous releases, but I'm still going to faff more, and this is why I like working with pages. You could even just highlight, you can see there, this is off the Alpha Florals, where you've got the oblong, and you could just highlight the dog rose just with that. Oh, I love things like this. So then I'm just going to come in just with a little bit more shading. I know, I'm a nuisance to say bye, and then I come back and say, just adding a bit more shading. So let's just add a little bit more. So it's entirely up to you how much of that sort of shading you want to add. And that is our page finished. So I hope that inspires you, Die, and I hope you'll give that a go. And I hope you faff as much as I do, because I can't help myself. Just adding a little touch of white there. But this is what I think journaling's about, just faffing a bit. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.